Did you get all these slides translated already, Erica? Cox, I'm the principal at RLS, and I'm so glad that you were able to join us this evening to find out some information about our return to in-person learning. We do have two interpreters at this webinar. One is Isidra, and the other is Julie. So I'm going to take a moment for Julie to be able to give instructions to our Spanish-speaking families.
Hola, buenas tardes. Estamos ofreciendo interpretación en vivo en español durante esta sesión. Si desea escuchar la interpretación en español, haga clic en el botón de interpretación en la parte inferior derecha de la pantalla. Verán un icono de globo terráqueo. Solo hágale clic ahí. Si se está uniendo a través de la aplicación Zoom para smartphone, seleccione su idioma haciendo clic en More o Más, o en los tres puntos en la esquina inferior derecha de la pantalla. Seleccione lenguaje Interpretation y luego elija español o Spanish y hágale Done y ahí mismo podrá escuchar la interpretación en español. Gracias.
Thank you, Julie. I appreciate that very much.
My pleasure.
Okay, so I just want to let everybody know that this meeting goes from 4 until 4:50. And you will not be able to ask questions until the end. At that point, Erica will ask for any questions that we may have, and you can virtually let her know that you would like to ask questions, and I will be happy to answer them. We are going to end promptly at 4:50 because the elementary school has a session similar to this one starting at 5 o'clock, and I know that lots of our families have students who are at the elementary school as well as here at RLS. All right, so we are going to have 4 main topics that I'll be talking about tonight. First is the schedule, and then the parent agreement and the health screening, a day in the life of an RLS student, and finally, office procedures. So I just want to start by letting everybody know that the goal of RLS and of our entire school district is truly to ensure the safest possible return to in-person learning 5 days a week. For that to happen, though, it will require every single one of us, administrators, teachers, staff members, parents, the community, and most especially our students, to work as a team so that we can keep our schools open and our students, our staff, and our community safe from infection. So all of the work that we have done has been to allow that to happen safely. So I'd like to start by explaining the schedules, which are quite different than we had last year and a little bit different than what we were doing during remote learning. The changes that were made in the schedule were made not to confuse anybody, but to make it safer for kids to come back to school live by reducing the number of transitions that were happening in the virtual schedule. So I know this part was confusing for a lot of parents because so many schools are doing a day, B day hybrid schedule where students go 2 days a week and other students go another 2 days a week. That is not what our A, B day rotation schedule is. Our students do attend school 5 days a week. The AB refers to on A days, they'll have periods 2, 3, 4, and 1. And on B days, they'll have periods 5, 6, 7, 8. And it just rotates as you can see. So on Monday, A, Tuesday, B, Wednesday, A, Thursday, B, Friday, A, and then the next week would start with a B day. And it just continues like that. If you look at week 13, which is the second week we come back, there's a gray spot, which is no school. It doesn't matter. We just skip right over that day, A on the Tuesday before, B on the Thursday after. It does work out evenly, so your students will have the same number of A days and B days with instruction through the course of the year until December 18th. We'll also be spending the first 2 days, teachers will be spending part of that time talking about procedures in their specific classes. Teachers have already started talking about school-wide procedures with students. History teachers all did it today and will continue talking about it as needed for the rest of this week. And then again, Monday and Tuesday next week will be for specific classroom procedures primarily. For those of you whose students are in distance learning, they should still attend class on Monday and Tuesday for a couple of reasons. One, at some point, they'll probably be back live, so they need to hear the information. And also, teachers won't be spending the entire period for 2 days going over procedures. Part of it will be curriculum. Here you see the daily student schedule that explains what classes they go to on A day and B day. At RLS, we have a tradition of doing wellness in the morning, which is just a few minutes over the loudspeaker where kids have an opportunity to breathe as a group, kind of get focused for the day, let go of some stress, get mentally prepared to start. We wanted to keep that in the schedule because I think in times like this, it's even more important than it normally is to have students have a little bit of time in the morning to get their day off to a good start. One thing that you might notice that's different than students' current schedules is that currently they start with first period if they're a sixth grader. In this schedule, everybody starts with second period instead. At first period of the day is second period on A days. The reason we did that is because initially we had a staggered start, half the time in the morning and half the time in the afternoon. In really thinking about how we could make it safest for kids and less logistically challenging for parents, Mr. Cinto at the high school and I really felt like the main thing was that it would be easier for everybody if the day started all at the same time. So you aren't going to be dropping kids off at separate times in the morning. However, if you have a student in sixth grade, for example, and one in eighth grade, they will have different ending times, but their starting times will be the same. If you look, it tells you what on the schedule that I have posted, you can see that on A days, 7th and 8th graders are dismissed first, and on B days, 6th graders are dismissed first. Students do need to go home on their dismissal time. We do not have the ability to have students hang out and wait for their friends or siblings after school. I fully understand that that is challenging for parents in some cases and might be difficult, but we need to do that for safety. The only exception is if you have a student who rides the school bus. If you live outside of walking distance and typically pick your children up and will find the logistics of 2 separate pickups just overwhelming, you may consider having your child ride the bus instead, because if they do ride the bus, they will have a classroom to wait in until the bus gets here. Lunch is grab and go, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So I know all of you received this in the mail. The parent agreement and student pledge are both required to be signed and turned in before students are allowed to come back on Monday. And this is just a way to make sure that we are all working together as a team so that we can come back as safely as possible. The parent agreement is asking that each parent completes a daily health screener before your child comes to school each day. There is a health checker that I'll show you again, and that if your child is not feeling well or is sick with symptoms consistent with COVID-19, that they should stay home that day. Please do not send them to school. And then there's an agreement that you will not send your child to school if they have any symptoms of COVID-19 until at least 10 days have passed since the symptoms first appeared, and your child has been free of fever for at least 24 hours without using any fever-reducing medication, and other symptoms have improved. For example, if they had a cough or shortness of breath, that would have improved. The student pledge, especially at middle school when kids are really hardwired to test boundaries, is the most challenging part. And I implore you to please talk to your child about how extremely important it is that each and every one of them follow the guidelines in the student pledge. If students won't do these things, then we cannot stay open. And so we need students to follow these guidelines. If students are unable to follow guidelines repeatedly or won't, then that's a conversation we will need to have with you and your child about whether in-person school is the right placement for your child or whether they would be better served by being in the distance program. So students do need to wear masks at all times when they're at school. They need to remember to stay physically distanced. to wash or sanitize their hands when they first get to school and as they go into their next class, and to follow all the health and safety protocols at school. Again, super important. Please take a moment to reiterate with your children how vital it is for this to happen. Here's a sample of the daily health screener, which has the symptoms of COVID-19 listed on the left, and then the questions that should be asked, and the guidelines for whether kids should be coming to school or not. And I know you all were given this, so you should have this at home. If you don't, please let us know and we'll be happy to get it for you. And this is just the now what flowchart. So what happens if you tested positive? What happens if you had close contact with somebody who tested positive? What happens if you had close contact with somebody who was exposed to somebody who tested positive? There's all kinds of information on here. And this entire session will be recorded and posted on the website. So you are more than welcome to go back and have a look later in more detail about exactly what the steps are in each of the circumstances. All of our teachers are aware of this. These are the guidelines that we're following as a district as well. So what's it going to look like for kids who are here every day? How is it going to be different than last year? Because it will be different. And I wanted to try and give a picture of what exactly each different part of the day would be like for students. So we'll start with arrival. And when students arrive, as we've already talked about, they need to be having a mask on or face coverings required. They need to keep 6-foot distancing whenever possible, wash their hands or sanitize regularly, and no hanging around in your classic middle school clumps, which will be really hard. All arrivals need to be through the Hillview entrance. So I understand that some people, it's more convenient for you to enter on the back by Elmhurst, but we are not allowing kids in there because we want to better control where kids are on campus and make sure that we know who is here and that they are safely distanced from each other before school starts. To help with that, we're also closing the parking circle. I know 6th grade parents may not be aware of this, but for parents who are 7th and 8th grade students, I'm sure you know how crowded that whole area can get. So we are asking that parents drop students on Hillview instead of coming into the parking area. We haven't allowed parents to go into the parking area after school for at least 4 years because it's just so crowded and not safe for kids anyway. So this is just expanding that to morning. And then because we're trying to make sure that students are not congregating, we are asking that any students who arrive prior to 8:20 are to report directly to the gym to sit in space seats that we have marked already. There will be a supervisory teacher or paraprofessional watching students to make sure that they're adhering to their rules and they're staying safe. And they will remain there until the first bell rings at 8:25. Once they get here, once the bell rings at 8:25, they can go head for their first classroom and line up. Classrooms before the first bell will be closed and locked. So students will not be able to go in the classrooms before school. They should follow the directional signage to class where indicated. We have arrows all over the ground. We have stand here stickers. So students should be able to figure out where to go, and teachers will be working with them to make sure that everyone understands for the first few days, and then following up all the time. And then students have a designated area for each class where they will line up as they wait for the teacher to let them in. When they enter class, first period of the day, the teacher will take every student's temperature with a no-touch thermometer. If students have a fever, they will be going directly to an isolation area in the office where parents will be called to pick them up. If students are tardy, they go directly to the office because they can't go into class until they have been cleared with the temperature check. And we are not asking teachers to stop while they're in the middle of teaching to do that for late children. Students should enter class while maintaining a social distance. They need to stay in their assigned seats unless given permission to get up. And this is one thing that has been confusing for people because when we hear on the news, it says that we should keep doors open and windows open for as much air circulation as possible. However, we are super lucky to be in a district that has really committed to make sure that everyone's safe. And we have invested in hospital grade filters for all of our classrooms and teaching spaces. They're MERV 13 filtration. So for them to work most effectively, the doors and windows need to remain shut because we only want to filter the air in the room. We don't want to filter the entire outdoors so that they won't work as well. So if you're confused about why doors are shut when you're hearing they should open them, that's why. When that guidance was written, it was with the assumption that most homes and other businesses do not have this kind of high-end filtration system. Other than using the bathroom, there are no in and out privileges once kids are in the class, and they won't be sharing materials within the classroom. We have enough things that each student will have their own supplies. You are also, of course, welcome to, if you choose to provide things for your kids to use, if that makes you feel better, you are more than welcome to do that. But we will provide whatever kids need. We also are shutting down the water fountains in class because we don't want kids wandering around during class to get a drink. So we are encouraging all students to bring a personal water bottle to school. And we have ordered water bottles, which should be here tomorrow. If a student does not have one of their own, then we'll provide one for them. They are allowed to get a drink in class, but it really is a situation of them getting a drink kind of like this. I'll demonstrate. So they have a mask on, they want to get a drink. They need to open their water bottle first. See, my mask is still on, then drink, put it back up, then close. By doing that, they're ensuring that their mask is only off while they actually have a water bottle in front of their face and that they're not using it as an excuse to take their mask off because it can be uncomfortable. Excuse me. Restroom use during class. So first of all, please encourage your children to use the restroom at home before school and after school if they're going home to try and hang on and use it after school. So as much as they can avoid using the restrooms at school, that would be the best. School is shorter than it used to be, so hopefully they won't need to take quite as many breaks. The restroom access is limited only to the number of stalls in the restroom. So kids cannot be in the restroom waiting for a stall to open. They need to stay outside until a stall empties and the person in that stall washes their hands and then comes back out, and then the next person in line can replace them. Restrooms are only open during class and break. We are not opening them during passing periods because it would just be too crowded and too much. So they can ask their teacher for permission to use the restroom during class, and they will also be open and monitored during break time. Students need to wear their mask even in the restroom. Obviously, after they use the restroom, they should wash their hands in the restroom, and they also need to use sanitizers, which are placed in the classroom and hallways when they return to class. Okay, the next thing is leaving class. So when it's time to leave class, the teachers will dismiss the students when the bell rings, starting with those closest to the door. So it's not going to be a giant, everybody leave, but dismissed by area of the room. Again, students need to follow the signs. They need to go directly to their next class. There is a 4-minute passing period, and we have a system for kids exiting, which is every time they leave the classroom, they turn to the right. And that's how our directions go, with the exception of the D wing. So for every other classroom, that's the rule for kids to remember: exit to the right, exit to the right, exit to the right. And we made sure that our signage facilitates that system of exiting to the right so that we don't have kids doing this in the hallways. And then while the students are passing, the teachers will spray student work areas with a disinfectant called All-Pet. It is very effective and dries quickly. It only takes a couple of minutes to dry. Teachers do know that when students first come in, if, for example, they were the very last desk that got sprayed, Their desk may be slightly damp when they first come in, so they should probably hold off a second before putting their paper down on the desk if they see it's damp. But it dries very quickly, like 2 minutes. Passing periods. So passing periods were something that we really gave a lot of thought to because we were concerned and we did not want to be that school that ends up on YouTube with a bunch of kids jammed in the hallway. So we've really worked to think about how best to make passing periods manageable. So to start with, students are going to be following teacher directions to exit the room. Again, exiting to the right from every class except for the D wing. Again, restrooms will be locked during passing periods, so there's no crowding in that area. Students should follow the signage and not block the doorways, and it's arranged so they won't do that if they follow the signs. They need to go directly to their next class, staying socially distanced, wearing a mask, and then waiting to enter class until the teacher lets them in. Because remember, teachers are sanitizing while they're out, so they won't be letting kids in until they're ready for them. So they'll just need to stay lined up outdoors. Break. So out of every logistical thing of figuring out how to get kids back, the break was really the thing that I was personally the most worried about, how we could manage that. And we have really focused on, okay, how can we make this be safe for everybody? How can we give kids a snack, breakfast, and not end up in a situation where kids are too crowded? So again, during break, classrooms will be closed and locked. We've discouraged this anyway, but we are not allowing parents to drop off food. So please make sure that if you are providing your child with something to eat, that you plan that in the morning. If you don't bring it, it's okay, because if students don't bring their own snack, we are providing free breakfast to every student, whether they normally qualify for free or reduced lunch or not. So students are all being provided with a free breakfast in the morning around 10, and then also lunch in the afternoon if they choose to get that. So you don't need to drop anything off. And then we were trying to think about how to have areas that are roomy enough that kids could spread out, and that would work no matter what the weather's like. So we have a couple of different locations. Sixth graders will walk directly across the parking lot, which is another reason why the parking lot is closed all day. And they'll eat on the grass area near Hillview Avenue. If it's raining, they'll eat in space seats in the gym. And our gym holds 849 people. So we have way more space than we need to for our number of students, sixth graders. Seventh graders will eat in the covered main quad area. They'll be there year round. Even if it's raining, it's covered. In normal times, the majority of our kids, like everybody, just stays outside anyway. Even when it's raining, they don't seem to get cold. I don't know. But if somebody's really cold, we could make room for them in the gym or the NPR. It's completely fine. But the plan is that people will just eat in the covered main quad area. And then eighth grade, when the weather's nice, they will be in the nature trail area, which is in the back part of the school. And if the weather is cold or rainy, then they will go in the multi-purpose room. Again, the multi-purpose room has a capacity of 559. So there's plenty of room in there for our 70 or so eighth graders that will be here. In each area where they pick up their breakfast, they will have a table where the food will be there. So they could just pick it up, sanitize their hands, pick it up. They need to keep their mask on, except when they're actually eating. And if they're done, we know that there are some kids who really, really need an opportunity to move around during the day. And so they can go to the track or field after they're done eating if they choose to do so, as long as they're following all safety guidelines. We will not be checking out balls or any shared equipment. So really during break, it's not an extended amount of time anyway, but it's mostly an opportunity for kids can run around if they want to. They can play in the grass, but they need to stay socially distant and not be sharing equipment. After school. Okay, so after school gets out, that is a staggered time. And so 6th graders, again, will get out earlier one day. 7th and 8th graders will get out earlier the next on an A-B rotation. When students get out, they may choose to pick up a grab-and-go lunch after their last class of the day. They don't have to. They can just go home and eat lunch at your house. That's fine. But if they want to pick up a lunch, they are certainly welcome to do that. And they will pick it up 6th graders in the same area where they got their breakfast, 7th and 8th graders in the quad. So again, 6th graders pick up their lunch on the grass, 7th and 8th graders in the quad. And then they're not eating their lunches here on campus. They're literally grabbing their lunch and going. So students have 10 minutes after their last class to be off campus, unless they're riding the bus. And if they are riding the bus, I'll talk about that right now. So bus riders will eat their lunch in the covered quad area. They will be supervised, and then they will go to an assigned grade level classroom to wait for the bus. They can do their homework in there. They will already have eaten. They will not be eating in the classroom. They will just be waiting for the bus. And then once they're on the bus, they will be required to wear a mask and adhere to the socially distanced rules that the bus driver gives them in order to remain riding the bus. So that covers the majority of what students will do, but here's some information that's going to be important for parents to know about how the office is going to run. So again, the parking circle is closed except for staff. So parents are asked to park on Hillview if you need to come into the office during the day or any other time. Parents and visitors and staff and students, everybody is required to wear a mask at all times while on campus. If you need to come to the main office, please make sure that you make an appointment first rather than just dropping in so that we know that you're here and can be prepared for you. You may call the school or text in order to make an appointment. And once you're here, you can knock to indicate your arrival, or I was just hearing that there's some sort of Bluetooth doorbell thing, so we might end up with that. But at this point, it's just knocking and texting. Again, because we're trying to reduce traffic and we're trying to keep cohorts safe and away from other unnecessary people, please do not drop off food or supplies for your children during the day. And we will not be delivering messages to students. So arrangements for after-school care and events need to be made ahead of time so that we aren't tracking back and forth into classes and dropping messages off. And I have listed in the purple rectangle is the office phone number. And then you may or may not be aware, but all the sites now also have a cell phone that's dedicated for parents. And you can text that number, which a lot of parents find more convenient. So you can text that number or call that number. And this was another tricky thing we were trying to figure out, is how to do off-grounds passes. So first, please plan to make appointments as much as possible after school. Students get out significantly earlier than they used to. So 7th and 8th graders, for example, are out before noon on A days, and 6th graders are out just before noon on B days. Other than that, it's essentially 1 o'clock. So they're either getting out at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, which should make scheduling afternoon appointments somewhat easier than it used to be when we got out at 3:30. If your child needs to leave school for some reason during the day and you need to pick them up, you must email or text before 8:30 in the morning. We have to have your request in writing, so please understand that we will not be accepting phone calls. So we need a request in writing via email or text. Passes will be posted inside the office door for students to pick up. So for example, if you call and say your child needs to leave at 10 o'clock, we would get that message. We would write a pass for your child, giving them permission to leave at 10 o'clock. You will already have told your child that they're leaving, so they'll know that they need to come to the office. When they open the front door, they'll be just taped up on the inside of the door. They can grab their pass and go to class. Once it's just about 10 o'clock, or they're going to be in the classroom where they'll be leaving early, they can let their teacher know, here's my, look at my pass. I need to leave at 10 o'clock or whatever time it is. When it's time, let their teacher know it's time for me to go. The teacher will be okay. They come up here, sit in the office at the indicated time, and they'll wait for you to show up. At that point, you guys have a couple of different options. So you can either knock to indicate you're here and come on in and pick your student up, or perhaps you have a baby sleeping in the car, or you just don't want to come in. If you prefer not to come into the office, you can text again to let us know you're here, and the office staff will watch the students walk out to your car so we make sure that they get with you and that they're safe. So that pretty much covers all the information that I'm sharing. I know it is a lot. And in summary, I just want to tell all of you that we are genuinely so ready to go and so excited to see your students in person again. All of us as educators got into this because we like kids, and it has been really challenging not being around students in person in the way that feeds our souls. So speaking especially for me, because I'm not on Zoom calls with kids all day long, even though I do watch them, I really miss seeing all their smiling faces, and we are very excited to see everybody back at school again. We also know that bringing kids back safely and keeping our school open will require the work of everybody, our entire community, all of our stakeholders, all of us. So I just want to thank all of you for your support and your partnership as we work to get our schools open and to keep our community safe. For those of you who want more information about safety, our nurse, Barbara Dondero, will be doing a parent training on Thursday, tomorrow at 5 o'clock. And if you look at our district website, there is a Zoom link that you can use to get into that, that meeting with Nurse Dondero. And at this time, my information is on the screen if you need to contact me. And if you have any questions, Erica will let you know how to indicate that.
Thank you. If there are any attendees in the audience who wish to ask a question, please hover down towards the bottom of your screen and click the virtual hand to raise your hand. If you are a phone-in caller and would like to ask a question, please press *9 now. So Ms. Cox, I'm going to go ahead and call on the first question, and that is Carrie Goth. Carrie, please unmute your mic.
Hi, Carrie.
Hello. I'm so sorry. I may have, I was 3 minutes late. When do we find out if our children are A or B schedule students?
So we did answer that question, but I'm going to go ahead and do it again because if anyone came in late, I think this is very key. Yeah. But I just want everyone to know that if other questions come up that I already covered, I'm just going to refer you back for the sake of making sure that new questions get answered. But this one I want to emphasize. All students are both A and B. They go 5 days a week. Every student goes 5 days a week. I have emailed the schedules. They're also on this slideshow, which will be posted on the website, and they're on the RLS website. So A day, B day simply means that on A day, they go to periods 2, 3, 4, 1. On B day, they go to periods 5, 6, 7, 8. So Monday A, Tuesday B, Wednesday A, Thursday B, Friday A, Monday B, like that.
Thank you.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And Corinne, if they need to leave for a standing appointment just a few minutes early, is that okay if we are not picking them up and they are excused on their bikes?
Let's do a written. We'll do a written thing with you.
Yep.
So
we
call
can
me.
do that after.
Call me on a different time and we'll figure it out.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Cassidy Harris, please unmute your mic so you may ask your question.
Hi there, Karen. Thanks for everything. Quick question. With the new schedule and a lot of us working parents, we may have certain days that are unmovable in terms of picking a kid up on time. On those days, which hopefully are less frequent, is there the opportunity to have that 1 out of 20 days where our children can Zoom in remotely from home to avoid having them waiting on campus or wandering around town?
That is an excellent question, and I am happy to say yes. That is one of the big reasons why we wanted to go to this model of having distance learning happening at the same time as students are here in person. So this allows you some flexibility in your life. We really want people to generally overall commit to I'm going to be here or I'm not. But if you committed to your students being here, but as you said, you have a time when they can't come for some reason, your work doesn't allow it, then they can still use the same links that they've been using to log into their classes and join in their classes virtually. That also allows any students who have symptoms of COVID and need to quarantine will be able to do the same thing. So they won't have their education interrupted. They won't have to switch to a different program. They'll have their same classes, same teachers, same time. Great question. Thank you.
Thank you. Get it.
Mrs. Torres, you may unmute yourself to ask your question.
Thank you. Corinne, I was wondering what the procedures are going to be for changing for PE class, and if kids will be required to do that.
No, we are not having any kids dress out for PE at all. So that is a good point. PE teachers will talk to your children about that, but please make sure that they wear appropriate footwear, closed-toed shoes. If they don't wear them, they need to bring them because they'll have to change into them, and they won't have a locker to put them in. So it means they need to have shoes in their backpack or some other bag that they're carrying, or just wear shoes they can do PE in. The locker room is not a safe situation for kids to be crowded into. It's too difficult to monitor, and we're just avoiding that entirely. Perfect. And if they're really desperate to, have another shirt, I mean, they could, but I think they'll be okay.
Alicia, please unmute yourself to ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can, yes. Alicia.
Yes, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. I probably misunderstood, but I just want to make sure I understood correctly. So are students not allowed to walk home if they have to?
Oh, no, of course they can walk home. They can absolutely walk home. Oh, you don't have to pick them up. If they're in walking distance, or they can ride their bike, they can ride their scooters, they can walk however they want to go home, is completely fine. They just need to go home when school's over.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right.
Carrie, you may unmute.
Hello.
Talk. Hi.
Hi. So sorry. I'm wondering if Alicia meant if kids needed to go home, they could still leave on their bike, not at the end of the day.
Oh, I see what you mean. So that parents are checking them out, you mean?
Correct.
So as long as we have something from you in writing from your number or your email, we can verify it's you, it's not your kid or anything like that. And we may call you to ensure that. But if you say my student has an appointment and may leave at X amount of time, and we have in writing that you have given permission, then we would allow them to do that.
Perfect. And sorry, Alicia, didn't mean to speak for you.
Are there any additional attendees who care to ask a question?
I do want to add one thing that came up on my texting, which is if students are sick. So if students are sick and they are feeling well enough to Zoom into class, they can do that. If they're not feeling well enough to Zoom into class and they're sick, then please do what you would always do, which is call school and notify us that your child is out sick, and we'll just mark them as an excused absence. So we're more than happy to do that. That hasn't changed at all. It's just that sometimes kids are too sick to go to school, but they might be okay to do school virtually. And then that's fine. They can do that. You don't even have to tell us if they're just going to be for one day needing to do virtual. We would appreciate it if you do tell us, but we're not going to say, we're not going to let your kids Zoom into class because you didn't tell us ahead of time. Please do tell us. It makes our lives much easier if we know what to expect. But if some reason you forget or something, we're not going to make a kid leave the Zoom. So don't worry about that. Are there any more questions?
There are. I have 3 more questions. Rigushi, you may unmute your mic to ask a question.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
I very much can. Yep.
A quick clarification. I wanted to just make sure I understand. So kids who come back to school and do the schedule and follow all those procedures, if they aren't able to come to school, they are able to Zoom in, and the teacher will have Zoom on in his or her classroom. And then there's a whole separate group of kids who might be doing the APEX program. Is that correct?
No, so we did do some shifting around on that. So we do have a handful of students whose parents chose at the beginning of this year for them to be in Fuel Ed for the entire year. And those students are remaining in Fuel Ed for the entire year, those parents who choose to do that. So that's a year-long program. They're distanced for all year. Then what we were going to do is say, is offer APEX as an option. What we heard loud and clear from our community at the board meeting, I don't know when it was, a month ago, is that they really wanted their students to be able to continue being instructed by our own St. Helena Unified School District teachers. And at least through the holidays when there's a lot of families that are traveling and moving, and there was a lot of worry about sending kids back at that time for families like that. So we shifted directions and decided to offer this opportunity that if parents just wanted to have their kids remain distanced through December 18th, that they could do that, and each of our teachers will have a camera on during their class, and they will be teaching their regular class, and also the Zoom kids will be able to watch while they're doing that. So the reality is it won't be the same experience that kids are having right now when they're learning from home, because right now the teacher is sitting in front of their laptop like I am with you, and my full attention is on you, just as their full attention is on their students right now. However, starting next week, their full attention is going to be on the actual kids in their room. That's who they'll primarily be teaching to. And then they'll be doing things like blah, 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 teach, teach, teach. Any of you have any questions? Do any of you have any questions? And then the students online can chat or talk to the teacher, and the teacher will do the very best that he or she can to interact. Your students who are remaining distant will need to be a bit more patient because the teacher is not staring at them every second. We are trying various ways to use the technology and include the large Promethean boards in the classroom. So some teachers are figuring out other ways to be more interactive with kids, and we'll share that among ourselves once we try it in real life and find out what works well and what doesn't. Laura, did that answer your question?
That's perfect, and that's a really nice accommodation you guys are doing for families. Thank you for clarifying.
Absolutely.
Okay, Acosta, please unmute your mic to ask your question.
Hi, Corinne.
Hi.
Hi, my question is regarding testing. Will the staff and teachers working with the students?
I'm so sorry, I can barely hear you.
Let me try again. The question is regarding testing. Are the teachers and staff working with the students, will they be required to test?
Are you saying testing like taking a test, or texting like on your phone?
Hello?
I'm sorry, Erica, do you know what she's saying?
I think she is asking questions about testing.
Taking tests? So are you asking if distanced students will take tests?
I'm asking about the COVID testing.
Oh, COVID testing.
Oh, yeah. COVID testing. Oh, okay, gotcha. I am so sorry.
No.
So staff will be tested. Every 2 weeks, we'll do about 25% of our staff will be tested. Students will not be tested. We cannot mandate that students be tested. And also our county doesn't test students without symptoms. You can't just drive through a healthy child and ask them to be tested unless they have symptoms. Parents, of course, are more than welcome to have their students tested if you can find a place that will do it. But we are testing staff. I hope that answered your question. Did it?
It did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I had such a hard time hearing you.
It looks like the caller with YURITZIN. Please unmute your mic.
Yes, hi. I just have a question. My daughter was, she was gonna do the distance distance learning program, but she was at the school today, so she's very excited. Can we change our mind to so she can go in person?
You can. So the sooner I get any changing of minds, the better. But we did send a text. We did send a text out to everybody today verifying what we have your child signed up for. And if you want to change it, please send me directly an email. It's on the screen right now, kcox@santalinaunified.org. And let me know if you want your child to be switched into in-person instead of distance. We can absolutely do that. One of the beauties of this blended system is all students still remain in their same classes. So we don't have to, change anyone's schedules or move them in and out of a program. They're just there in person instead of there virtually. It's very flexible. And so it's pretty easy for us to do that. And we did build our class sizes around everybody except for the fuel ed kids being here in person. So we do have room for parents that want their kids to come back in person.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And I also just want to say, just to pause for just an instant to say that we worked really hard to keep your children safe in class. So in addition to all of the things that I talked about in this session, we are fortunate enough that we already had class sizes that are small, and we had our teachers all agree to teach an extra section to reduce class sizes even further. So our class sizes are, we are mostly 15, 16, 17, maybe 18. They're not very big. Every student has at least 6 feet around them between themselves and any other student. The teachers have at least 6 feet away from all of the students. And we also have teacher barriers and student barriers. So I just want to thank our district for making such a huge investment in ensuring that everybody will be safe when we return. Sorry, Erica, if you had another question.
I have one question. I think Principal Cox, this should be our last question before we close. So okay. I'll go ahead and, Carrie, go ahead and unmute your mic to talk.
So it's actually more of a statement, and I apologize. One, I just want to say thank you because you guys have been amazing since last year and amazing this year. It is very much appreciated by all of us. But two, I would like to just point out to parents, my kids are actually going to wear face shields as well. Not everyone has to do it, but it's there. They are super cheap. I have plenty if anyone wants some. I didn't realize how many I was ordering. It was an accident on Amazon. But I work at Behringer and I'm there with people who are traveling. It's cold and flu season. So anyone who wants some to keep our teachers safe, our kids safe, keep school open, I'm happy to do anything. I'll even order more. Happily.
Thank you, Carrie. Appreciate it very much. And we really appreciate your kind words. We have been working non-stop for
that is
months
obvious, Corinne,
to get this done. I mean, I know it feels like, why can't you just open school? I cannot tell you the level of care and thought and planning that has gone into this. And we feel good about it. Like we're ready. I feel like we're ready.
Yeah.
So thank you. Okay, so for the rest of you, we are going to end because there is in 10 minutes a similar presentation at the elementary school that I know some of you want to get to. Please know that this entire recording along with the PowerPoint will be available on the district website and also on the RLS website. If you know people who were unable to be here tonight, I highly encourage you to ask them to watch it with their children because this is important for kids to know too. This is really, especially at the secondary level, our biggest push is to make sure that kids understand that if they want to come back to school, they need to behave responsibly and not be the teenagers that their hearts want them to be, but to do the right thing for everybody. So again, thank you all so much for being here. We're super excited to be back on Monday and have a great evening.